Prahlad Maharaj ki, Sri Prabhupada ki, Gaur Premanandi. It's 9:46. So we're
Hare Krishna, everyone. Hopefully, everyone is having a good time, being absorbed in various devotional activities throughout the whole day, trying to pack as much hearing and chanting into your daily routine as possible. We're continuing where we left off yesterday with our Krishna book reading. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Here we go. From here.
Thanks.
We're finished.
All right. Sri Uddhava confirmed Lord Krishna's statement in Bhagavad Gita. The one who takes shelter of him for the right purpose, be he a Sudra or lower, will obtain the highest goal of life. The gopis set the standard of devotion for the whole world. By following in the footsteps of the gopis, by constantly thinking of Krishna, one can attain the highest perfectional stage of spiritual life. The gopis were born not of any highly cultured family, but of cowherd men. Yet they developed the highest love of Krishna. For self-realization or God-realization, there is no need to take birth in a high family. The only thing needed for ecstatic development of love of God in achieving perfection in Krishna consciousness, no other qualification is required than to be constantly engaged in the loving service of Krishna, the supreme nectar, the reservoir of all pleasure. The effect of taking up Krishna consciousness is just like that of drinking nectar. With or without one's knowledge, it will act. The active principle of Krishna consciousness will equally manifest itself everywhere. It does not matter how and where one has taken his birth. Krishna will bestow his benediction upon anyone who takes to Krishna consciousness without any doubt. The supreme benediction attained by the gopis, in spite of their being born in the families of cowherd men, was never attained even by the goddess of fortune herself, and certainly not by the denizens of heaven, though the bodily scent of the women there is exactly like the scent of the lotus. The gopis are so fortunate that during the Ras Leela, Krishna personally embraced them with his arms. Krishna kissed them face to face. Certainly, it is not possible for any women in the three worlds to achieve this except the gopis. Uddhava appreciated the exalted position of the gopis and wished to fall down and take the dust of their feet on his head. Yet he dared not ask the gopis to offer the dust from their feet. Perhaps they would not be agreeable. Therefore, to have his head smeared with the dust of the gopis' feet without their knowledge, he desired to become only an insignificant clump of grass or herbs in the land of Vrindavan. The gopis were so much attracted to Krishna that when they heard the vibration of his flute, they instantly left their homes.
They left their homes, families, children, honor and feminine bashfulness and ran towards the place where Krishna was standing. They did not consider whether they were passing over the road or through the jungles. Imperceptibly, the dust of their feet was bestowed on small grasses and herbs of Vrindavan. Not daring to place the dust of the gopis' feet on his own head in this life, Uddhava aspired to have a future birth in the position of a clump of grass or herbs. He would then be able to have the dust of the gopis' feet. Uddhava appreciated the extraordinary fortune of the gopis, who relieved themselves of all material contamination by placing on their high, beautiful breasts the lotus feet of Krishna, which are worshipped not only by the goddess of fortune, but by such exalted demigods as Brahma and Lord Shiva, and which great yogis meditate upon within their hearts. Thus Uddhava desired to be able to constantly pray to be honored by the dust of the gopis' lotus feet. The gopis' chanting of the transcendental pastimes of Lord Krishna has become celebrated all over the three worlds. After living in Vrindavan for some days, Uddhava desired to go back to Krishna, and he begged permission to leave from Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda. He had a farewell meeting with the gopis, and, taking permission from them also, he mounted his chariot to start for Mathura. When Uddhava was about to leave, all the inhabitants of Vrindavan, headed by Maharaj Nanda and Yashoda, came to bid him goodbye and presented him with various kinds of valuable goods secured in Vrindavan. They expressed their feelings with tears in their eyes due to intense attachment for Krishna. All of them desired a benediction from Uddhava. They desired always to remember the glorious activities of Krishna and wanted their minds always fixed upon his lotus feet, their words always engaged in glorifying Krishna, and their bodies always engaged in bowing down as they constantly remembered him. This prayer of the inhabitants of Vrindavan is the super excellent type of self-realization. The method is very simple: to fix the mind always on the lotus feet of Krishna, to talk always of Krishna without passing on to any other subject matter, and to engage the body in Krishna's service constantly. Specifically, in this human form of life, one should engage his life, resources, words, and intelligence for the service of the Lord. Only such activities can elevate a human being to the highest level of perfection.
Oh, we got you.
Yeah.
Thanks. This is the verdict of all authorities. The inhabitants of Vrindavan said, by the will of the Supreme Authority and according to the results of their work, we may take our birth anywhere. It doesn't matter where we are born, but our prayer is that we may simply be engaged in Krishna consciousness. A pure devotee of Lord Krishna never desires to be promoted to the heavenly planets, or even to Vaikuntha, or Goloka Vrindavan, because he has no desire for his own personal satisfaction. A pure devotee regards both heaven and hell to be on an equal level. Without Krishna, heaven is hell, and with Krishna, hell is heaven. Hare Krishna. When Uddhava had sufficiently honoured the worship of the pure devotees of Vrindavan, he returned to Mathura and to his master Krishna. After offering respects by bowing down before Lord Krishna and Balaram, he described the wonderful devotional life of the inhabitants of Vrindavan. He presented all the gifts given by the inhabitants of Vrindavan to Vasudeva, the father of Krishna, and Ugrasena, Krishna's grandfather. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 46th chapter of Krishna, a delivery of the message of Krishna to the gopis.
And so we finished chapters 46. We are proceeding with chapter 47. Krishna pleases his devotees. For days together, Krishna heard from Uddhava all the details of his visit to Vrindavan, of the condition of his father and mother, and of the gopis and the cowherd boys. Lord Krishna was fully satisfied that Uddhava was able to solace them by his instructions and by the message delivered to them. Lord Krishna then decided to go to the house of Kubja, the hunchback woman, who had pleased him by offering him sandalwood pulp when he was entering the city of Mathura. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna always tries to please his devotees as much as the devotees try to please Krishna. As the devotees always think of Krishna within their hearts, Krishna also thinks of his devotees within himself. When Gubja was converted into a beautiful society girl, she wanted Krishna to come to her place so that she could try to receive and worship him in her own way. Society girls generally try to satisfy their clients by offering their bodies for the men to enjoy. But this society girl, Gubja, was actually captivated by a lust to satisfy her senses with Krishna. When Krishna decided to go to the house of Gubja, he certainly had no desire for sense gratification. By supplying the sandalwood pulp to Krishna, Gubja had already satisfied his senses. On the plea of her sense gratification, however, he decided to go to her house, not actually for sense gratification, but to turn her into a pure devotee. Krishna is always served by many thousands of consciousness of fortune. Therefore, he has no need to satisfy his senses by going to a society girl.
But because he is kind to everyone, he decided to go there. It is said that the moon does not withhold its shining from the courtyard of a crooked person. Similarly, Krishna's transcendental mercy is never denied to anyone who has rendered service unto him, whether through lust, anger, fear, or pure love. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is stated that if one wants to serve Krishna and at the same time wants to satisfy his own lusty desires, Krishna will handle the situation so that the devotee forgets his lusty desire and becomes fully purified and constantly engaged in the service of the Lord. To fulfill his past promise, Krishna, along with Uddhava, went to the house of Kubja. When Krishna reached the house, he saw that it was completely decorated in a way to excite the lusty desires of a man. This suggests that there were many nude pictures on top of which there were canopies and flags embroidered with pearl necklaces. Along with comfortable beds and cushioned chairs, the rooms were provided with flower garlands and were nicely scented with incense and sprinkled with scented water, and the rooms were illuminated by nice lamps. When Kubja saw that Lord Krishna had come to her house to fulfill his promise to visit, she immediately got up from her chair to receive him. Accompanied by her many girlfriends, she began to talk with him with great respect and honour. After offering him a nice place to sit, she worshipped Lord Krishna in a manner just suitable to her position. Uddhava was similarly received by Kubja and her girlfriends, but he was not on an equal level with Krishna, and he simply sat down on the floor. Without wasting time, as one usually does in such situations, Krishna entered the bedroom of Kubja. In the meantime, Kubja took her bath and smeared her body with sandalwood pulp. She dressed herself with nice garments, valuable jewellery, ornaments and flower garlands. After chewing betel nuts and other intoxicating edibles and spraying herself with scents, she appeared before Krishna. Her smiling glance and moving eyebrows were full of feminine bashfulness as she stood gracefully before Lord Krishna, who is known as Madhava, the husband of the goddess of fortune. When Krishna saw Kubja hesitating to come before him, he immediately caught hold of her hand, which was decorated with bangles. With great affection, he dragged her near him and made her sit by his side. Simply by having previously supplied pulp of sandalwood to the Supreme Lord, Krishna, Kubja became free from all sinful reactions and eligible to enjoy with him. She then took Krishna's lotus feet and placed them on her breasts, which were burning with the blazing fire of lust. By smelling the fragrance of Krishna's lotus feet, she was immediately relieved of all lusty desires. She was thus allowed to embrace Krishna with both her arms and mitigate her long-cherished desire to have Krishna as a visitor in her house. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita that one must be freed of all material sinful reactions before one can engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Simply by supplying sandalwood pulp to Krishna, Kubja was thus rewarded. She was not trained to worship Krishna in any other way. Therefore, she wanted to satisfy him by her profession. It is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita that the Lord can be worshipped even by one's profession, if it is sincerely offered for the pleasure of the Lord. Kubja told Krishna, "My dear friend, kindly remain with me at least for a few days and enjoy with me. My dear lotus-eyed friend, I cannot leave you immediately. Please grant my request." As stated in the Vedic versions, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is multipotencies. According to expert opinion, Kubja represents the Purusha Shakti potency of Krishna, just as Shrimati Radharani represents his Chit Shakti potency. Although Kubja requested Krishna to remain with her for some days, Krishna politely impressed upon her that it would not be possible for him to stay. Krishna visits the material world occasionally, whereas his connection with the spiritual world is eternal. Krishna is always present either in the Vaikuntha planets or in the Goloka Vrindavan planet. The technical term of his presence in the spiritual world is called Prakrita Leela. After satisfying Kubja with sweet words, Krishna returned home with Uddhava. This was a warning. There is a warning in the Srimad Bhagavatam that Krishna is not very easily worshipped, for he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the chief among the Vishnu Tattvas. To worship Krishna or have association with him is not very easy. Specifically, there is a warning for devotees attracted to Krishna through conjugal love. It is not good for them to desire sense gratification by direct association with Krishna. Actually, the activities of sense gratification are material. In the spiritual world, there are symptoms like kissing and embracing, but there is no sense gratificatory process as it exists in the material world. This warning is specifically for those known as Sahajya, who take it for granted.
You want to keep going? You want to keep going?
Okay.
We did 2 pages already.
Okay. Take it for granted that Krishna is an ordinary human being. They desire to enjoy sex life with him in a perverted way. In a spiritual relationship, sense gratification is most insignificant. Anyone who desires a relationship of perverted sense gratification with Krishna must be considered less intelligent. His mentality requires to be reformed. After a while, Krishna fulfilled his promise to visit Akrura at his house. Akrura was in a relationship with Krishna as his servitor, and Krishna wanted to get some service from him. He went there accompanied by both Lord Balaram and Uddhava. When Krishna, Balaram and Uddhava approached the house of Akrura, Akrura came forward, embraced Uddhava and offered respectful obeisances, bowing down before Lord Krishna and Balaram. Krishna, Balaram and Uddhava offered him obeisances in turn and were offering appropriate sitting places. When all were comfortably seated, Akrura washed their feet and sprinkled the water on his head. Then he offered nice clothing, flowers, and sandalwood pulp in regular worship. All three of them were very satisfied by Kura's behaviour. Kura then bowed down before Krishna, putting his head on the ground. Then placing Krishna's lotus feet on his lap, Kura gently began to massage them. When Kura was fully satisfied in the presence of Krishna and Balaram, his eyes filled with tears of love for Krishna, and he began to offer his prayers as follows. My dear Lord Krishna, it is very kind of you to have killed Kamsa and his associates. You have delivered the whole family of the Yadu dynasty from the greatest calamity. The Yadus will always remember your saving of their great dynasty. My dear Lord Krishna and Balaram, you are the original personality from whom everything has emanated, the original cause of all causes. You have an inconceivable energy and you are all pervasive. There is no cause and effect, gross or subtle, but you. You are the supreme Brahman realized by the study of the Vedas, by your inconceivable energy. You are actually visible before us. You create this cosmic manifestation by your own potencies, and you enter into it yourself. As the five material elements, earth, water, fire, air and sky, are distributed in everything manifested by different kinds of bodies, you alone enter the various bodies created by your own energy. You enter the body as the individual soul, and independently as a super soul. The material body is created by your inferior energy. The living entities, individual souls, are part and parcel of you.
And the super soul is your localized representation. This material body, the living entity, and the super soul constitute an individual living being, but originally they are all different energies of the one Supreme Lord. In the material world, you create, maintain, and dissolve the whole manifestation by interactions of three qualities, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance. But you are not implicated in the activities of those material qualities, for your supreme knowledge is never overcome like the knowledge of the individual living entity. The Supreme Lord enters the material cosmos and causes creation, maintenance, and destruction in their due course, whereas the part and parcel living entity enters the material elements and has his material body created for him. The difference between the living entity and the Lord is that the living entity is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord and has the tendency to be overcome by the interactions of material qualities. Krishna, the Param Brahman or the Supreme Brahman, being always situated in full knowledge, is never overcome by such activities. Therefore Krishna is called Achyuta, meaning he who never falls down. Krishna's knowledge of spiritual identity is never overcome by material action, whereas the identity of the minute part and parcel living entities is prone to be materially overcome. The individual living entities are eternally part and parcel of God, minute sparks of the original fire, Krishna, but they have the tendencies to become extinguished. Akrura continued, "Less intelligent man misunderstand your transcendental form to be made of material energy, but that concept is not at all applicable to you. Actually, you are all spiritual, and there is no difference between you and your body. Therefore, there is no question of your being conditioned or liberated. You are ever liberated in any condition of life. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, only fools and rascals consider you an ordinary man. To consider your lordship one of us, conditioned by the material nature, is a mistake due to our imperfect knowledge. When people deviate from the original knowledge of the Vedas, they try to identify the ordinary living entity with your lordship, who have appeared on this earth in your original form, to re-establish the real knowledge that the living entities are neither one nor equal to the Supreme God. My dear Lord, you are always situated in uncontaminated goodness, Shuddha Sattva.
Your appearance is only necessary to re-establish actual Vedic knowledge. as opposed to the atheistic philosophy which tries to establish that God and the living entities are one and the same. My dear Lord Krishna, this time you have appeared in the home of Vasudeva as his son, and with your plenary expansion, Sri Balaram, your mission is to kill all the atheistic royal families and destroy their huge military strength. You have invented yourself to minimize the burden of the world, and to fulfill this mission, you have glorified the dynasty of Yadu by appearing in the family as one of its members. My dear Lord, today my home has been purified by your presence. I have become the most fortunate person in the world, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is worshipped by all different kinds of demigods, pittas, kings, emperors, and other living entities, and who is the super soul of everything, has come into my home. The water of his lotus feet purifies the three worlds, and now he has kindly come to my place. Who in the three worlds, among factually learned men, will not take shelter of your lotus feet and surrender unto you? Who, knowing well that no one can be as affectionate as you are to your devotees, is so foolish that he will declare to become your devotee? Throughout the Vedic literature, it is declared that you are the dearmost friend of every living entity. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, Suritam Sarvabhutanam. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, completely capable of fulfilling the desires of your devotees. You are the real friend of everyone. In spite of giving yourself to your devotees, you are never depleted of your original potency. Your potency never decreases nor increases in volume. My dear Lord, it is very difficult for even a great mystic yogis and demigods to assert your movements or approach you. Yet, out of your causeless mercy, you have kindly consented to come to my home. This is the most auspicious moment in the journey of my material existence. By your grace only, I can now understand that my home, my wife, my children, and my worldly possessions are all bonds to material existence. Please cut the knot and save me from this entanglement of false society, friendship, and love. Lord Shri Krishna was very pleased with Akura's offering of prayers. His smile captivating Akura more and more, and the Lord replied to him in sweet words as follows: My dear Akura, in spite of your submissiveness, I consider you my superior, on the level with my father.
And teacher, and most well-wishing friend, you are therefore to be worshipped by me, and since you are my uncle, I am always to be protected by you. I desire you to maintain me, for I am one of your own children. Apart from this filial relationship, an exalted devotee like you is always to be worshipped by everyone. Anyone who desires good fortune must offer his respectful obeisances unto personalities like you, who are greater than the demigods. People worship the demigods when in need of some sense gratification, and the demigods offer benedictions to their devotees after being worshipped. But a devotee like Akrura is always ready to offer people the greatest benediction. A saintly person or devotee is free to offer benedictions to everyone, whereas the demigods can offer benedictions only after being worshipped. One can take advantage of a place of pilgrimage only after going there, and worshipping a particular demigod involves waiting a long time for the fulfillment of one's desire. But saintly persons like you, my dear Akrura, can immediately fulfill all the desires of a devotee. My dear Akrura, you are always our friend and well-wisher. You are always ready to act for our welfare. Kindly, therefore, go to Hastinapur and see what arrangement has been made for the Pandavas. Krishna was anxious to know about the sons of Pandu because at a very young age they had lost their father. Being very friendly to his devotees, Krishna was anxious to know about them, and therefore he deputed Akrura to go to Hastinapur and get information of the real situation. Krishna continued, quote, I have heard that after King Bandu's death, his young sons, Yudhishthir, Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula, and Sahadev, along with their widowed mother, have come under the charge of Dhritarashtra, who is to look after them as their guardian. But I have also heard that Dhritarashtra is not only blind from birth, but also blind in his affection for his cruel son Duryodhana. The 5 Pandavas are the sons of King Bandu, but Dhritarashtra, due to his plans and his designs, is not favorably disposed towards them. Kindly go there and study how Dhritarashtra is dealing with the Pandavas. On the receipt of your report, I shall consider how to favor them. In this way, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, ordered Akrura to go to Hastinapura, and then he returned home, accompanied by Balaram and Uddhava. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 47th chapter of Krishna. Krishna pleases his devotees. Hare Krishna.
Very good.
Yes, thank you everyone for joining. We will continue tomorrow. And so we have great fortune in the form of this Krishna book to engage our mind, apply our mind to Krishna's pastimes, which are very attractive and very purifying at the same time. We miss you all here in temple, but we hope that we soon can all come together, have ecstatic kirtans, and some messages coming in. Okay, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.